Kari. And again, thanks so much for taking the time today.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, hello, everyone. It's nice to be here. My name is Kari. I am the lead buyer's agent for Kari Real Estate. We are based out of Springfield, Missouri. And I have been in the business since 2007. I sold my first house in 2009, and I was an individual agent. I moved over to Keller Williams in 2012, and I was the top individual agent in our market center in 2013, 14, and 16. I missed 15 by 1 unit because I had twins that year in August. And so my business had just grown tremendously being at Keller Williams, learning our systems and models. I built a team myself in 2017. I had an administrative assistant, brought on a transaction coordinator, and then I brought my husband on, got his real estate license, and he joined my team. That year we did 88 transactions, right about 15 million here in our area. Our average sales price is quite lower than your guys's, I'm sure. And in 2018, a friend of mine, Rainmaker, he's like the top agent in our area, came to me and he said, "What does this look like if we join together and you become my lead buyer's agent and you build a team within a team?" And I was like, "What does that look like?" So we literally sat there with an org chart, and everyone on my team, me and 3 other people, fit into his organization, which I think his was like 6 people at the time. And we said, what if we did this together? So we basically merged in 2018 and just put our foot on the gas pedal. I helped grow the buy side from 107 transactions that he had done before me, all the way up to 264. That was my biggest year in 2021. Last year, right at 200. In the past 5 years, I've helped over 1,100 buyers. So basically, I've made this a really, really systematized process, I guess. I run the buy side just like if I were to run listings. So my husband actually is still on my team. He is my listing agent. And then I run the showing partner model. I have 2 showing partners underneath me. And so that's basically the dynamic of the buy side. We are a team dependent model versus an independent team model, which means that we have a lot of backup support, right? So we did last year 426 units total, and we have 7 agents in production. Currently we have 6 agents in production. We had somebody that moved into the medical field. So basically we have an ISA department. I have my own transaction manager. The list side has their own transaction manager. We have a marketing director, a listing manager, a director of operations. So that's kind of how our team runs. And basically what we do is we just really try to dial everybody into focusing on their 20%, so that we're not scattered everywhere, right? So my showing partners, their main role is to go and show houses. If they're not showing houses, they're not making money, we're not moving our business forward. So my role is that when a lead comes in, they all come and meet with me in person, and we do a strategy session. I don't like calling it a buyer consultation. I just feel like it feels very cold. It feels like very, it just doesn't sound fun. And whenever the ISAs are on the phone and they're talking to a buyer, coming in and having a strategy session so that we can ask you 100 questions to only show you 4 houses versus showing you 100 houses because we only asked you 4 questions, I think is the really big thing that kind of makes sense. And then we're dialing them in. But the whole point of the strategy session is for me to have FaceTime with them, show them value, and set expectation. And then, of course, at the very end, we are getting that loyalty agreement signed so that we know that we can move business forward with people who are wanting to work and work with us, right? We're not running around showing properties to people that aren't going to be loyal to us, because we have too many people that want to work with us and see value in us. So basically, when a lead comes in, the ISAs go through the LP Mama, right? Location, price, motivation, agent, mortgage, appointment. So they're basically trying to pre-qualify those buyers to make sure that whenever they come and meet with me, that they are ready, willing, and able, right? We classify all of our buyers as A buyers, B buyers, or C buyers, and we put them in our pipeline because we want to be meeting with those people that are, going to transact within the next 90 days. And if they're not, we've got a nurture that the ISAs keep them on that we're just staying in touch with them, right? It's like going to a retail store. I always say it's a fitting room analogy. And people walk up to you and they say, "What are you looking for today?" And you say, "Nothing," right? Well, the next thing you know, your hands are completely full of things and they're nowhere to be found, right? And so what happens is somebody else comes up to them or to you and they say, "Can I help you?" And you say, "Yes." Well, that person's now getting that transaction. So we've got a very systematized system on how we're staying in touch with those people and what those nurtures look like. But if they are ready to transact, they're staying in our A pipeline, and we have them on our own nurture process. And then our buy side team meets every Tuesday where we're going through that pipeline and we're looking through those A buyers, B buyers, and C buyers, right? A buyers are ready, willing, and willing to do whatever it takes to close, right? They're ready, willing, and able. And then a B buyer is someone who's two of the three. Maybe they're ready and they're able, but they're not willing to do whatever it takes, right? And it depends on the market that we're in. We've had to recategorize our buyers just because of the market and the way that it shifted, right? Our B buyers are now our A buyers, right? So we've got to constantly be adjusting those things. But, we basically are revisiting them every single Tuesday to see who we can move forward the business. During that strategy session, I'm basically going through several different steps of, making sure that they understand the value. The first part of the strategy session is all about them, right? It's how many kids do they have? Do they have dogs? Do they have cats? What's important to them? It's their buyer DNA. I'm finding out exactly what they want. And I'm asking them the questions in regards to how are we purchasing the property? Are we cash? Are we getting a loan? And what are our monthly payments? Because that's been so important with the interest rates changing and having a conversation around that. I'm very, very big on not embedding any objections, but making them feel really good about their process and their purchase, right? And we're setting expectations. I personally don't get too big into the weeds as far as like inspections and appraisals and things like that, because I feel like for me, the strategy session needs to stay under 45 minutes. That way they stay engaged the entire time, right? When they start looking at you and they're just going, you've lost them. And so it just is that time frame for me has been really, really important. The next step of the buyer strategy session is that's whenever I do the pass, which is what everybody asks about the showing partner. How do they not feel like they're being passed off? It happens in the strategy session where I basically explain to them the 3 key people that are going to be working with them during their purchase. So that's going to be me, the showing partner that's assigned to them, and their transaction manager. I've got a picture with bios, and I basically explain all of that very thoroughly to them. And then I move on to a flow chart, which basically I have built out to a phase 1 and a phase 2, talking about contract to close, and that Macy, the transaction coordinator, why she or manager is so important during that entire process. And then I go on to why you should work with a buyer's agent, right? And it's a really easy sheet that I built out. This is what it looked like before. We've kind of updated it because it just is a little whatever, but I give this to every single person. So basically on here, we're talking about the houses that are active on the market we have access to. I'm talking about what platform that they should be searching in our area, because I know in different states, Zillow doesn't work in our state. We're a non-disclosed state. So Zillow is actually very inaccurate, and a lot of agents shut off their feeds. So I try to set the expectation of where I want them searching. I talk about for sale by owners, because in our market, we sell a ton of for sale by owners. One of my buyer's agents is Bo, and we say you can't say FSBO without Bo, because he is relentless with for sale by owners. And I love for sale by owners because they're basically hiring me to work against them, and I can get my client the best deal, right? And I'm in control of the whole thing. And then we talk about off-market properties. So, with us doing the most amount of business, obviously we have shadow inventory. And if we can house match somebody, then that always makes it a really smooth transaction as well. It helps with contingencies. It helps with the dominoes that we sometimes have. And so I'm explaining all of that to them and why that's so important. I also talk about, on this sheet, it talks about how many families that we've helped in the past 5 years, how many negotiations we've helped with as far as inspections. But I'm answering all of their questions, should they have any. The next thing I do is the hours of operation. I was very resistant against this for a long time until COVID happened, and people's schedules switched completely upside down, right? Everybody went remote. So people's 2 p.m.s became their 2 a.m.s, and I don't answer my phone or texts. And so putting some parameters around that area, that was really, really hard, because I know that as an industry, we basically said we're open 24/7. And I'm not. I have twins, and I think that it's important that I have a really good work-life balance, and I live by my calendar. If you saw my calendar, I'm a yogi, hot yoga is my thing. It is in red, it is non-negotiable, and nobody can schedule over that. And it is consistent on all of my schedules. Gymnastics for my girls, if there's meets, it's on my calendar. If we're going on a date, it's on my calendar. And everybody can see every appointment that I have, and it's open. If it's open, someone's going to schedule an appointment on it, right? So that's really important as far as like a team, is just making sure that everyone is fully dialed into that. I also have the 7 commandments on there, which is basically from the lenders. It's in the ship book. I think I don't know the page number off the top of my head. I usually know that. But it basically is just, don't go buy a car, don't go buy all the furniture, don't go sell a car, don't change your employment. And then we have our mission, vision, and promise to our clients. So we include that. And then the last one is the loyalty agreement. And I call it the loyalty agreement just because I don't like the, exclusive right, employment of broker, exclusive right, right? And ours, I don't know what you guys are, but ours is 6 pages long. And so I print it out back to back, right? Double-sided. So it's only 3 pages, because the look that you get on someone's face when you start going through 6 pages, it makes them take a deep breath, right? They're like, oh my gosh, what am I signing, right? And you all know that document like the back of your hand, so you can fly through it really fast. And if you don't, you need to practice, because that document needs to be something that every single line, every single like what everything means. And then also explaining your fees that are on there, if that's something that is changing with you guys, which I know that that's kind of been the big discussion in the past couple of months. So those are kind of my key things. But what happens is when you do that strategy session and you're really, really focusing on them and what they want, and learning about their dog and their cat and their kids, and why, living on acreage is important to them, or why, the garage space is important, and dissecting those things, and then explaining the buyer expectation of what that process looks like, that you're like hitting the easy button. You're going to take this process and make it the easiest, smoothest transaction that you could possibly imagine. And you've got key people that are going to keep this a really great client customer based experience for them, to the point where when you close and they say, what did you think? And they were like, it was literally exactly like what you said. You're explaining the emotions that are going to happen even during that strategy session, or whenever they go under contract, right? We always finish with, this is what's going to happen next. This is who's going to be reaching out to you. Do you remember whenever I met you at that strategy session and I said Macy was going to be, your main point of contact from contract to close, but I'm still going to be talking to you. So Macy's going to be reaching out to you, right? It's just buyer expectation, but we're setting ourselves up to bring value, so that whenever you say, I have my loyalty agreement sitting here next to me, and I would like to get that signed today so that I can go ahead and set up these searches for you, and Bo will be reaching out to you in the next 24 hours. Are you ready to sign that with me today? There's no question, right? They're like, absolutely. I'm definitely wanting to sign that with you. And then you go through the key points of the loyalty agreement. Ours is time frame, and then compensation and everything like that. The one thing that I did change with all of that, with the loyalty agreement and the fee, is I personally write in language that says the fee to be which that was offered by the co-op broker, but under no circumstances less than 3%. And the reason why we did that was not only for the lawsuit and everything else, but we're having a conversation about what that compensation looks like should there be any type of discrepancy. And what I also have found is that in our market specifically, we're seeing a lot of builders offer bonuses. We saw that a long time ago and we kind of come back to it. But, putting in any type of specific number, then that basically can limit me from the ability of being able to take a bonus should there be one offered. And so that was kind of my thinking of why that was important. And then we have a conversation, and I've had people ask a couple of questions since all of this has happened, where it's like, well, what happens with the compensation? And we just run it like a for sale by owner, right? And they understand that. So I think that the big thing for me is just agent communication. If you're ever in a situation of the agent not being able to understand, right? Because whenever someone comes to you with that objection, if there is anything about compensation, especially on the list side, it's really, how are you practicing having that conversation around that to make sure that you feel comfortable, but then being able to explain that as a buyer's agent. Because if somebody is taking something for less, I oftentimes will call and say, hey, I just wanted to be clear on, the compensation, and, how are we structuring this, or what is the net, right? Everybody always just cares about the net. So being able to make sure that you can maybe help the other agent explain that to maybe their seller. So those are the 9 key points that I do in my strategy session. And I think the big thing is for me is that, like, I'm just a really system-based person. And I feel like you've got to constantly look at your systems and tweak those systems. But in order for us to be as efficient as we are, and to make sure that our client experience is really high, we've basically systematized that so tight. And I feel like we've done a really good job. I mean, if you look up our team, we have over 1,100 Google reviews of 5-star reviews. So, I mean, we really push the reviews and the referrals because that's the lifeline of our business, right? If you go and you're wanting to buy a car, you're going to go read the reviews. And so we get a lot of leads through our Google PPCs and our reviews. So we get a lot of past client referrals and everything else. So I feel like I just kind of like rambled for a little while.
No, you did great. I'll if you don't mind, I'll jump in with a couple questions to give you a chance to take a breather. I know it's a lot to just, broadcast for 30 minutes straight, but you're adding a ton of value, and I see a lot of agents nodding, and I can tell they're resonating with everything that you're saying. So I had a few questions, because what I was hoping to focus on, some of the things that you do differently, maybe from what a lot of our agents are doing. So you touched on the showing model, showing partner model. How is that, different from a more traditional team? And how do you, what are the advantages of doing it that way versus a more typical buyer's agent? And if you can talk about, how compensation for that is typically structured.
Yeah, absolutely. It's probably one of the number one questions that I get. So basically, I started the buyer or the showing partner model in the sense of, what's the one thing that is keeping me from doing more? And it's showings. So if I could eliminate that and focus just on going on appointments, negotiating contracts, and lead generating, always, doing all the 5 things that we're supposed to do. But if I could eliminate that one thing, how much more business could we do? Well, it kind of catapulted. So when I make their focus that they're specifically, going and showing properties, and we do it at a very professional level, right? We're not Vanna White. Like, you don't walk around and be like, here's the living room, here's the kitchen. Like, people know what that is, right? We're showing value because we're pointing out things that other people don't do, right? I've had Justin show property before, and then we get a call and it was just like a show me. We'll do one show me. And they were like, I've never had someone show me a house the way that you do and talk the way that you did about, the area, and being the professional of knowing the comps, knowing the area, knowing any questions that they have, and just valuing that up a little bit. It took a ton off of my plate. And then what's the benefit for them is that they don't have to deal with all the contract to close and some of the emotions and all of that kind of stuff. Some people don't want to do that, right? They're happy with just going and showing the properties. And then, hey, Kari, they're wanting to move forward and write an offer. We've got a whole system on how we write offers so that we can be super efficient and fast. Oftentimes, we've got an offer in their email before they're even home to look at the contract because we've gotten it so systematized and efficient. And so when we make that their 20% and that's all they're focused on is, I pass the buyer to Bo and I say, hey, I've got a search set up. I've already put them on the pipeline. I've labeled them A, B, or C. We know what our touch program is going to be, how often we're reaching out to them. He immediately checks in with them within 24 hours. Hey, this is Bo. I know that Kari introduced me during your strategy session yesterday. I'm going to be the one that's going to be meeting you out at the properties. Do you have any questions? Is there anything specific that you want me to bring with me every time that I meet with you? And then we dial them in, and him and we sit, you guys can see I've got chairs, right? I kicked everybody out for this. They're out showing property, but no, if they're not showing property, they're in here digging for property and they're lead generating, and then they're looking for off-market property. The other thing that we do at a very high level is we built a pipeline of off-market properties. So every time we're interacting with an agent, whether it's, hey, can I show this property? Inspections, setting closing dates. If I'm on the phone with an agent, I always finish with, hey, while I've got you on the phone, what else do you have that's coming up on the market that's maybe not on yet that I can know about? And then we put it in the system. We sell a lot of properties off market by doing that.
When you say you put it in the system, what system do you put it in?
It's an Excel spreadsheet.
Got it. Okay.
So we basically train people how to treat us, right? Whether it's your buyers. So we don't answer our phones at 9 o'clock at night, right? Because the second you do, they're going to call you 9 o'clock at night. So these agents we've trained to where I get texts all the time, and so does Bo and Justin, where it's, hey, I've got this property coming up. So we now have so many people influx giving us properties that aren't on the market. It's a huge win. And I know that in the inventory shortage that we've been in for the past couple of years, that's been a big, huge deal.
It's a smart idea. So how about the economic model? How does that work between showing partners and buyer's agents and your role in the Rainmaker?
Yeah. So Adam and I are partners. So we have everything split 50-50, and then the showing partner is paid by me. I have them on a salary and then also on a commission. And so that all comes out of my side. I started to grow a sliding scale to where I could be moving them up to more leverage for me, more responsibility for them, and then a higher split. And so, that's an option as well.
You certainly don't have to. Would you mind sharing more specific, like roughly what a salary would be and what a split would be for a showing partner?
So in our area, it's going to seem really low for you guys probably, but it's basically $18,000 a year. And then it starts out at a 12.5%, and then it slowly moves up. But I'd say in the first year, they're making somewhere between $60,000 and $75,000. Our average sales price is about $275,000 right now. We sell the most property. I think my average sales price is a little more, up to $350,000. But, Bo will do 80, 85 transactions. He did last year, so he'll do 90, 95 this year.
Wow. So we have a lot of our top teams on here. So one question I was thinking about is, if I'm a Rainmaker of a big team, how do I go about, finding a partner like you that can, at a high level run the whole buyer operation? And do you bring them in? Is that where someone starts as a showing partner, then becomes a buyer's agent, then becomes the lead buyer agent? And is there any advice on what does and does not work when you're, building a team like that? Any tips for either the people on the team or the people running the teams?
So I get asked this a lot, and I think my answer.
I'm a very obvious guy. I'm not asking any of the crazy questions, all the ones that everyone else asks. Sorry about that. But.
No, I love this because if you knew me, and if you know me, I'm a quite controlling personality,
No,
and
I'm getting that from you, to be honest. It's very controlling.
but nobody would have thought that I would do that. I mean, I had people from brokerages calling me and being like, "What are you doing? Why would you do that?" And I think that, the hockey stick of our business that we all have, I definitely was going there, right? And I wanted to be I wanted to be number one in the area. And this was just a way to kind of catapult the business. And him and I work very, very well together. And I think that that's really, really important, is the dynamic. But I've had a few agents reach out to me and they're like, "Hey, I would like to do what you and Adam have done. How have you done that?" And I think that you need to find an agent that is a very self-sufficient self-starter that has grown a tremendous business, and then show a value proposition as to what you can do to bring that business and make it even bigger, and be able to, make your world big enough for that person to fit inside. And you can't cherry pick. So that's one of the things that I loved about Adam, was from the very beginning, he was like, "I'm never going to do another buy side deal again. You're going to handle all my people," even people that he's had transact with him for, 14 transactions, and they're, $2 and $3 million buyers. So I think that that's really, really important. And I think that right now there's the biggest opportunity for anyone, because people want to be on teams, right? The business is changed and people are scared. The fear is there. And so we have so many people reaching out to us, and, team is like the big buzzword right now. And I think that there's a lot of opportunity around it, but you've got to make your world big enough for that person to fit in.
That makes a lot of sense. So moving over to the loyalty, I just have a couple more, and then you can, jump back to what you want to cover. We can open up for Q&A. But the buyer agency agreement, I'm curious, in our area, a very low percentage of people were using it before some of these new changes. It's becoming more common. Was that something you were always doing, or is that something that you've stepped up more in the past year or so?
5 years. 5 years I've done it. I would say that when I was an individual agent, and also whenever I had a team, it wasn't something I was doing up front. When we moved into this, my role is the lead buyer's agent, and I've got showing partners, and my job is to go on appointments and move the business forward. That's whenever all of that really, really changed. And I remember being a little, I was nervous about it, but I think the more that you do it, we have to treat our buyers like a listing, right? You can't go and put a listing on the market if they haven't signed paperwork. Why are we going in and driving our gas and taking these people around if they're not going to be loyal to you? And so that really, really, really changed, is just running the business like a business and making sure we're getting those agreements signed up front. I mean, it is a little bit of, internal, you kind of have that resistance against it, but once you start doing it and people, it just makes you feel so much better.
Resistance from the buyer's agents not wanting to ask the buyers for it, or resistance from the buyers to sign it, or both?
Just
And before you can
resistance
answer
from
that,
agents.
let me back one other quick question. What percentage today of the buyers that you work with have signed that?
I am at a 73% conversion rate.
Can you be more specific? You said 73%. I thought that was a very specific. I'm joking. Sorry.
Yeah, well, I track everything, so kind of crazy.
So that's a big percentage. And then for agents here that are not used to it and or skeptical or concerned, what's the biggest pushback they may see, and what's your best advice to just make sure they get this signed? To me, it seems like a no-brainer. When I actually ran a team in the Stone Age, we got people to sign it, and it wasn't a big deal. But there's a lot of fear out there that if I ask them to sign this, they're not going to want to work with me. So what's your advice? In our area, this is relatively new, and they're just getting used to it.
Yeah, and I've learned that in other states too, that the buyer's agreement doesn't exist, which I think is I was kind of shocked to learn that. But I think that the biggest resistance is then you have an objection and you're not answering the question. So, what about signing this today? Are you not comfortable with moving forward? Or is there something that I didn't answer for you that would make you feel more comfortable. And so we're just asking those questions because if there's an underlying something, right? Because then it could come up with, oh, well, my, so-and-so's whatever is an agent, and what we tend to find is if we can have a conversation around that, it's like, oh, okay, so, do they do that full time? No, they don't. Oh, okay. Well, do you know how many people or buyers or sellers they helped last year? So you can start having questions that they can lead you to why you're more valuable. But just asking those questions, because if somebody's not willing to sign it, it's because you haven't answered a question.
That's a great answer. Thank you for that. We're getting some questions. I was going to ask it anyway. You seem to have some great systems and documents that you're referencing. Is that something that you'd be willing to share with us?
I could share some of them.
Okay. Yeah. And then probably my last question, and then we'll open it up. I see we have some in the chat. What I love also is hearing that, when we traded messages before this, that you do the bulk of your businesses is by referral. Do you have any advice? How do you generate? I mean, that's the best kind of business, the referral business. Any tips for how you generate such a high percentage of your business through past clients and referrals in your sphere?
Yeah, I mean, we're touching them constantly. Our lead gen is a lot of just, checking in with people, hey, I was in the neighborhood, I drove by your house, it looks great. I'm not in front of their house, I'm just saying that. And,
so lying is a big
anything.
part of that.
No.
Got it.
But just being a resource, I think it's like if everybody knows exactly what you do, you don't even have to ask the question. So you can just check in and say, hey, how are you? I was just thinking about you. I've done that several times, and even a text like, hey, happy new year. Just checking in with you if you need anything from me. But we do a ton of client events, and then our ISAs are checking in with our past clients. Our main source of business is past clients and referrals, and we do ask for those, from them pretty commonly. And then just staying in front of them. Our next lead source, which everybody always, questions or is like, how is that even possible, is sign calls. And that's where we get a lot of buyer leads too, is, signs in the yard. Then they call in, and then we're doing the LP Mama, and then we're bringing them in for an appointment, and then they're coming to meet with us. But a lot of it is past client referrals. And when when you're selling, our biggest year, we did 611 buy sale units for the year. I mean, we do a lot of business, but we're giving back to the community. We tell our story. We've got a huge social media, and then we do the client events, which is always a huge hit.
Since you lied about being in front of people's houses, I'll lie that was my last question. This will really be my last question. If you were going to give like one piece of advice, like when I'm ever go to a class, I'm like, I want to come away with like one thing that I can get off the Zoom or walk out of the room and like implement that'll help my business. Is there one just piece of advice that, you are doing a little bit differently, or even if it's not different, just that, works in this market, whether it's, client events, or what's the one thing that people can say, I got a really great nugget out of that call today that I can use? What would that be?
Well, I don't know if this will be a great nugget, but you've got to track. You've got to track everything. So I've got metrics that I track. I track buyer appointments to buyer signed, listing appointments to listing signed, because my husband does my listings. Buyers under contract, listings under contract. I do contracts written and closed, and then I even track like fall throughs. And what I was saying whenever you mentioned the loyalty agreement, you have to track that. I know I'm a 73% because I track it and I stare at it every day. And when you track things, it eliminates if there's an issue, right? Is it a system, or is it a person, or is it something that I'm doing wrong, right? A perfect example was in 2021, whenever the market went whatever. I remember talking to my MAPS coach and Aaron Hurd, and I said, I wrote 11 contracts and I only got 2. And I'm like, what the heck is happening, right? It was like third week of January or something like that. And so he was like, well, is it a system, or is it you? And so it was something that I was doing with my offers, and I completely changed those around. I ended up finishing the year at a 74% contract written to closed. And I think that was super important that, if I would have continued down the road and not fixed the way I was writing offers and the way I was presenting offers and the way that I was handling other agents and that whole system that I had, I would have ran all my buyer's agents into the ground and everybody would burn out, right? The whole team would have quit. And so it was by me tracking that I realized that I had a problem and that I needed to fix. And so I just think that tracking your numbers and paying attention to, you know, your appointment set. If you're going on listing appointments and you're not getting them signed, you need to know that. You need to practice more. And it will take the guesswork out of it. You know, so many people that are like, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. Well, are you tracking it?
That's great advice. All right, I'm sure people are sick of me asking questions. Elizabeth, you have some in the chat, and ideally, let's ask people to unmute rather than you reading them, so it could be a little more interactive.
Sure. All right, I'm just going to start from the bottom. So Scott was asking, what's the change you made to increase your offer accepted rate?
So I have a whole system built around that too, which I swear I'm fun. I just am like, we've got to fix this. That's pretty much how I do. So the big thing is just agent to agent interaction. I have 13 questions I ask every single agent before I, submit the offer. And then I'm basically, guiding my buyer based off of those questions that I asked and the answers that were given. We load in the offer and then we send it as a text and an email with all of the terms in it. It's one email, right? It's not 12 emails and it's like, oh, well, this here's, and this is this. Whenever you're in multiple offers and there's 13 other offers on there, if you don't look disorganized, the agent doesn't want to work with you. So the big thing though is a voice-to-voice interaction and having a conversation with the agent. And then if I don't get the property, for some reason for my buyers, I'm having a voice-to-voice conversation with the agent, finding out what I could have done differently. And if it's something like $50,000 cash, no appraisal, no inspection, okay. And then I'm asking if there's a backup offer. So it's just continuous communication that, I've had people be like, listen, I just want to work with you. So if you'll do this, we'll get the deal done. So it's just having a really good reputation with the other agents.
Sounds good.
Someone from KW Valley, I'm not sure who you are, but if you want to unmute yourself, I'll start your question. Is your loyalty agreement a realtor form or is it something that your team created?
It's our MAR document. It's a buyer's exclusive agency contract and it's written by, MAR attorneys.
Okay.
And MAR is a Missouri board?
Association of
So
Realtors.
you don't have a customized document. You're just using the standard one. Okay. Boy, our agents are making me customize ours. It's almost done. I saw that was a question in there that we should have that this week. Don't use it as an excuse for not closing deals. She's closing 200 deals with a non-custom form. So it can be done.
Kathy Warnett, if you want to unmute yourself. She sent a message to me directly. There you go. Go ahead,
Sorry
Kathy.
about that. So what do you do with the other 23% that don't sign the agreement?
Those are just what I'm tracking. And the one thing I will say that I don't do, I probably should, is that if there is a lag signature, I don't always count that, right? So I may have, an investor, right? So they buy a property and then like 6 months later, they buy another property for me. Like I may not count that. So, or they meet with me and they say, all the decision makers aren't there. They say, I'm going to go home. I'm going to meet with my husband. We always try to have all decision makers at the strategy session, but sometimes if we can't make that happen, then we'll send it to them electronically. And that may be something that, I'm moving so fast through the day that I don't go back and track.
Thank you.
Kari, I'm going to be respectful of your time, but we have a lot more questions. Would you be able to stay on for a few more minutes past 3, or do you have a hard stop?
Yep. Nope. We're good.
All right, cool.
Thank you.
Everyone
Diana.
else, I know we say we'd always end at 3. If you need to jump off, totally understand. I think this is super valuable content, and we probably won't be able to get Kari again for another couple of years as a huge waiting list. So let's take advantage while we have her here.
Diana Ivanov, want to unmute yourself?
Hi, how are you?
Hello.
Amazing content. Really, thank you for being here and for
You're welcome.
showing up. You also, Al, are wonderful.
Thank you.
Oh, that I said that in the Christmas card. So, Kari, I've been using the buyer agency agreement here for years and years. Comfortable. I feel good about that our team is a little bit ahead of the game there.
Mm-hmm.
We're not as adept at having the commission conversation now. And again, trying to get ahead of what's going on. I think I have a little bit of verbiage on what we're doing. How are you handling that commission conversation based on a current environment?
So basically I just kind of explained that, typically in our area, we co-op with other agents, and most of the time, the seller and the listing agent have that agreement that that's how I get paid. So it's through the seller. But for some reason, if that fee is not covered, we're basically going to kind of treat this like a for sale by owner, and that may be rolled up into the purchase price. Does that sound okay with you? So we just typically just use it as a for sale by owner. It's the exact same conversation as if that's how we handle the for sale by owners. So it's been positive. I'm sure I'll if you ask me that in 6 months, I might have a couple more objections that I've gotten, but I haven't had any issues with it.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Yeah, we're doing it with wholesalers as well. Just
Yes.
trying to get used to that process. If it's an off-market deal, we have to have that conversation anyway. So just trying to get better at it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, let's go to Sasha next.
I'm sorry, I'm in the car and I'm driving kids, multitasking as usual. Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we can hear you.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm driving. My question is about your agreement because I'm wondering how long is the agreement for? Like for a couple months, or you doing it till?
Yeah, great question. I think it depends. Is probably the way I would answer that. It depends on the buyer. It depends on their timeline, right? So I'll do them for 6 months. Or if they're in a lease and I know that this is kind of like an early meeting, I may do it for a little bit longer. But I had somebody the other day that's like, I have to be in something by the end of February. So I did it until the end of March. So I think it kind of depends on the buyer, and that way they feel good about it, that you're not just locking them into something for a year and there's no timeline that makes sense for them. So it's really dependent upon them and their timeline.
But my question is, you don't want to waste your time, like you said, right? You don't want to just drive and then, you want to lock them in and you want to sell the house, right, to them. That's the main goal, right?
Yeah, but I'm also not going to show them properties if they're buying a house in June. So I'm setting that expectation up with them on, I realize that we're a little bit early and we're meeting. So Corinne's going to stay in touch with you. And then what I would say is, since you've got to be out of your apartment at the end of June, we really need to start kind of dialing this in. And we may do a regroup strategy session to see if anything has changed with your approval, but we probably won't go look at houses until, X date. And I set that expectation with them and what they are, but I'm not going to go show property with someone unless they say they're ready to break a lease. And I know what their motivation is, right? Because I need to match their motivation.
Right, of course, I understand. Thank you so much. It was wonderful.
Of course. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I think that's great advice. Back to what we were talking about on our sync call yesterday. I think that's great advice for somebody like Kari that has 200 buyers, but until you have a lot of buyers, I don't know if I were a new agent that I'd be turning down somebody who doesn't want to buy for a few months. Because if you're not working with anybody, then you have to work with those people until you get, better people. But I see some newer agents using the tactics of somebody who's closing 200 deals. Kari can afford to turn people down. But if I were a new agent and they said, I just want to look around, but I'm not planning to buy for 6 months, that's better than, working with somebody with a long time horizon is a lot better than not working with anybody. And then when you get filled up and you have, more and more clients, you can start turning people away. But at the beginning, I would take out anybody that you can. It's better than, sitting at home.
I got a few more questions. So iPhone asked, what type of client events do you find most successful?
Great question. I really loved the buyer seminars. So I would do those for a while. That kind of helped kind of build a lot of those buyers and everything else. I always did it at a coffee shop or something. And I thought that was really, really great. We do a fall event that is an Easter Bunny event. And we basically have people come to us and we do eggs and Easter Bunny and pictures and all that kind of stuff. We have a fall event that is pumpkins actually are not that expensive. And so we do, we utilize the parks that are near us. So we've got a place called Rutledge Rilson that's got like animals, we do the huge blow ups. And then of course we've got, you know, grilled food and stuff like that, but people come and get their pumpkins and it's just really interactive. People love it. We do the pies. We've done that for many, many years where we can come and get, you know, hot chocolate and pies and get your hug. And then, you know, Christmas cards, we're staying in touch with them on all of that. So those are our main events that we do. We do some VIP for our VIPs and VIP plus and stuff like that. So wine tastings or, but I think the big thing is we're always asking people like, do you need anything? A lot of care calls, I think is a big thing for us.
Awesome. Jade, can you unmute? You had a question? All right, Jade was asking, what do you offer to show your value to your buyers?
I mean, it's my entire value proposition where I'm talking about me, and our team and what, you know, showing value of what it is that they're wanting to buy and making sure that they understand our market, right? So before I go into the strategy session, I can see, you know, all of their LP mama, basically like what their timeline is, who the buyer is, are they pre-qualified, what are they kind of looking for? So when I go into that strategy session, I'm already set up to understand kind of what their parameters are so that I can talk about the market very fluidly so that they understand that I'm actually very knowledgeable about the market and can guide them. And it maybe set some expectation on days on the market or negotiating or be able to answer those questions should they have them. So I think the value is, you know, setting yourself apart from other agents, but also running through this entire process. There's so many times that I've met with people where they were just like, gosh, I can't believe how many questions you asked. And I feel like you really understand what we're looking for. And then I'm also setting the expectation, like we're only going to look at 4 houses, right? I mean, like that's kind of the hope is that we want to just show them as few houses as possible because we know exactly what they want.
Awesome. Diana's unmuted. You're the last question I had. So go ahead, Diana.
Thank you. Do you do them on Zoom as well? If you can't connect personally, I imagine that personally is, you know, obviously better. They come in, they see the professionalism, they meet you, you know, all that energy, but will you do them on Zoom as well? And how long does it usually take with your process?
So same thing. I try to keep everything under 45 minutes. 40 minutes is kind of my sweet spot. And then, yes, absolutely. I am doing Zooms, not as much. I mean, gosh, in 2020, I didn't track how many Zooms we did, but I mean, everybody was a Zoom. So I still do those because we have a lot of people that are moving here from out of state. So if I can have that FaceTime, it always makes that loyalty agreement a little bit easier to get signed. If they're on Zoom, right? If we have doing the phone consults and stuff like that, it's really hard to be like, hey, I'm going to send you paperwork for you to go ahead and sign. That's a really tough ask. It's usually waiting until they come in town, they meet us face to face, they see our value, and then they're able to sign then. But the Zooms are great. And I think that especially where you guys are, probably not everything is within, I don't know what your you know, location space is. We pretty much will service anything within an hour of where we are.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely.
Someone just texted me. Can you ask what the 13 questions are that you're asking a listing agent before submitting offers?
Is that something you could just share with us after? I don't know if you want to read them all off right now.
I mean, yeah, it's not rocket science. You know, how many offers do you have? And then I have a really, you know, way of kind of going about that to where if they're like, no, you know, I can't tell you that, you know, I can't tell you that. Then I start asking questions that they will answer. You know, what title company do you want me to close at? Is there is closing date that is really important to you? You know, where are they going? Okay, so did you say that the offer that you have is closing in 2 weeks? You know, if they say yes, obviously it's cash. So I'm just constantly like asking a lot of those questions. But yes, I can share that with you.
Thank you.
Kara, did you already throw your contact info in the chat? I'm hoping that if we have any referrals, what's the area that you serve?
I am in Springfield, Missouri, right in the very, very center. And then the other thing is
So would you serve is that near Kansas City or St. Louis or no?
That's pretty far for us. It's like
Both.
3 hours. So
Okay.
So I am doing a group coaching through KW Maps, and me and Jen Davis will be doing that together. It's all going to be about the buyer showing partner model and about the strategy session and everything else. So I'm going to load that in here. If anybody wants to sign up, it's going to be April 11th, and that will be me and Jen Davis in our group coaching. And then I am Kari W at kw.com.
Awesome. And I'm sure a lot of us would like to sign up for that. And we're going to send an email out to all of you after this with the follow-up with the presentation. And we'll also share the link to sign up for Kari's program. So hopefully some of you will sign up, and that will make Kari want to come back and teach us again next year.
That'd be
Did you have any more questions, Elizabeth, or we done?
No, that's all I had. Everyone, you're getting a lot of thank yous in the chat though. So thank you so
I think I'd
much.
have to cut everybody off at 3:15, but it sounds like we'll be done even sooner. Does anybody have a last minute question? I saw Ron chime in there. He's one of our biggest buyer agents. Did you have any questions, Ron, or anything you wanted to share?
Questions? No. She did a great job. She covered a lot. I think that we take a lot of those, tips and just make a whole class out of it, whether it be becoming an expert or systemizing your, your showings, just the showing, from what are you doing before, what are you doing during, what are you doing after, how do you pass it off? There's just, the strategy session itself. What are you doing before? What are you doing during? What are you doing after? Communicating value, getting yes, and just going to the close and tracking your numbers. I think there's a lot of information in there to grow with.
Awesome. Thank you, Ron. All right, last call. Any other questions or comments for Kari before we wrap it up?
I have one quick question. Hi, Kari. My name's Rob. I think you're awesome. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask you because this is all based around systems, and I'm like myself. I'm in the process of trying to build that out, and I appreciate what you're doing. As far as your systems, do you have like specific apps, or like where do you kind of record all your systems? Have your team, like your showing assistants, follow them? Like, how do you do you use Trello? Do you use how do you organize it all?
I mean, honestly, it's all through Google Drive. I have a buy side, tool place where I put all of my stuff, and then I'm constantly evaluating and tweaking it, right? With the buyer DNA, obviously things have changed with the market. So I'm constantly saying what's the one question that I'm asking all the time that it's not on there? And then I make those changes. So it's not an app. I mean, I just basically have everything kind of built out, and then every couple of months, I print everything out in groups of 12 and 15. And so once I get to that 15th person, I'm basically looking at it again, going, what do I need to change and how do I need to make it better? And I think that as agents, that's one thing that we don't do, is we don't change our systems. And with the market constantly changing, we need to be adding things to it. So it's kind of like our transaction manager, they have a system from contract to close. Well, when something falls between the cracks, it's because we missed a system. So we need to add something to it. So I would just say, document to duplicate. And I think that that's basically what I've done. And then we're just constantly just tweaking it. I have those 2 pages that I showed you that's the benefits of why to work with an agent. And so it went from this to this just because it was cleaner, but it's just, it needed to have some changes and some tweaks, and just doing that on a consistent basis to make everything better.
Oh, thank you.
All right. This is really the last call. Anyone else? All right. Well, I found a lot of value in this. I'm sure you all did as well. Thank you so much, Kari. We really appreciate it. And we're happy to try to return the favor any way that we can.
Thank you. Thank you so much. This was really fun. I hope you guys got some value.
Absolutely.
Bye, Kari. Thank you.
All right. Have a great weekend, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.